Connect backbone, that we need to understand that these in 4 years' time. The EaPEC Connect region will also need to look at how can we achieve indefeasible rights of use, IRU contracts, long-term access to dark fiber capacity in the region. How do we achieve increased resilience in the region in order to make sure that, you know, the border between Romania, which is part of the Chisinau project, or Poland and the EaPEC Connect region, I mean, it's just there. But because we have two different funding strands, we run the risk of not aligning these. So I think it will be our joint responsibility, and I'm looking also to Arthur and Octavian here as European representatives, to ensure that we have the dialogue with the European Union, our own governments, but also the EaPEC Connect regional governments, that they understand that we need to be synergetic in our approach in order to ensure that the digital divide in Europe does not get bigger.
Okay, it's well, there are, in my opinion, there are two issues here: is the external support for the NREN and the connectivity to the outside world and to Europe, but it's you should consider also in the in the development of your NREN the national connectivity, because I'm aware of the situation in this area. We supported RENAM for a number of years. It's 10 years or maybe more than 10 years. In 2003, I guess it was the first link between Romania, between Roedunet and RENAM, and we continuously supported the connectivity of RENAM to GEANT, to internet and so on. But okay, in all of this time, the RENAM was Chisinau, and okay, I'm not living in Bucharest, so I'm not staying in the capital, but I would be not very pleased for Roedunet to serve only the capital, and I guess you should have the, on your roadmap and on the government roadmap, some plans to reach at least the most, important cities where you have universities, you have research capabilities, because it is important to have the support not only from the center of the country. You should have the support of the whole country. So that's my opinion. That and I said in the beginning, I said that you have to have the infrastructure, but you have to have the national infrastructure to be competitive with the, because okay, we are in Romania, we are not paying, okay, the university is not paying anything to Roedunet because well, it's something like the ministry is getting the money from the university before giving the money to the university and support the NREN. But it was not the ministry finding the opportunities to develop the national NREN and the national infrastructure. It is not the responsibility. I think it is not the responsibility of GEANT, of somebody, or of the responsibility from. We can show you the the best practices, and and Roedunet, the Polish network, could show you the best practices in achieving that goal. I guess this is really important at that stage for RENAM.
I fully agree that this problem exists, for example, for Moldova, and maybe for our other NRENs, I'm sure the same situation. But of course, Roedunet is one example, and I think Pioneer is well developed into.
We have some kind of the idea that the access to fiber gives us a freedom, and I think that it is still actual. Yes, we are trying at this moment to solve a problem with the global communication. Yes, this example as the Bella. it is a case what we are solving here. It is a problem of the continental on the some. But this case, how to solve some national problem or the access in the cities, in the villages. Yes, it is the same dominant that we must go in with these services what we are offering to these end users, and only if we are able to provide this to this end user, yeah, that it will be some success factor of our infrastructure. And in Poland, we are because it was impossible to get access to the fibers, we're building the first metro networks, and during 10 years between the 2001 2011, we're building own a fiber infrastructure between the cities, yeah, because it was only one choice, yes, to provide this kind of the services with the reasonable prices and provide infrastructures for the next 20 years. Yeah, I am not sure that it is a model which could be the repeatable in the other countries, yeah, but it was our case and it was a success.
No, I have to say that we've followed somehow your lead. It's not because that's why I said that the power of the example from the neighbors and similar situation, and okay, we were lucky to find some fiber owned by the Romanian government. We were under the same government, and we said, okay, you have a fiber you are not using, give it for the Romanian research and education. But it was not something from the somebody from the ministry, to find that opportunity for us. We search for opportunities, and otherwise we had to to get the IRU from some commercial providers. And okay, it's not a big deal maybe now, but at that time, 10 years ago, it was a really a big deal. And it was another issue that they said that, okay, we cannot give you fiber because that was something that we faced with. So I'm pretty sure that you will find the ways to solve your national connectivity in Moldova.
What I have found also that is very important, that the research community itself shows a level of solidarity. I always preach to researchers and scientists that if they participate in a global project and they feel that they are in an institution that's not really well connected, don't give up. I mean, you really need to raise your voice and say, I am in this research institute, I happen to be outside the capital of my country. I still need to participate in this global project because it's important for my country, it's important for me, it's important for my region, it's important for my institution. And not to give up. There's too many researchers out there that accept the fact that it takes so long to download their data, that accept the fact that they still need to use disks and don't have access to cloud. And we need to overcome that. I think everybody needs to speak up and say, look, in the year 2018, I should have this access and it needs to be given to me. And I think this is something where we all need to also, when we are in the GÉANT environment where, connectivity at many institutions is in abundance. If we work in these institutions and we have a colleague in Moldova who doesn't really have the connectivity yet, we should not adapt our research to that colleague in Moldova so that they can do a little bit. No, we should raise our voice and insist that the colleague in Moldova has exactly the same homogeneous access and user experience as anybody else in that project. And this solidarity is so important, and too often people, researchers, whatever, think, oh, well, it works for me, that's fine. And if we keep thinking that, nothing's ever going to change. So I'd encourage everybody, if you notice that somebody sits at the end of the shoestring and cannot really participate in what you're doing, don't exclude them. Don't make a statement and say, look, I want this institution to have better connectivity. What do we need to do to speak to your government to get that institution and give it better connectivity. I think if we have that level of solidarity, a lot of things would work.
In this context, I would like to mention that given our priority is to penetrate the European research area and to compete with researchers on European standards, and of course we rely on the experience and on the support, on the technical assistance of the European partners, and this is also our priority to make to connect all universities, all researchers, all researchers community to this network. We understand this is important, and we rely also on the support and on the partnership of our researchers and of our universities.
Thank you. So now we have the last question. This question is about how international projects, regional projects like Eastern Partnership Connect or other similar projects support development of research educational networking in our countries. Of course, we already spoke that every REN has possibility to get international funding, and without this funding, on my opinion, it is important to develop infrastructure and services. Of course, it has to be complementary action, and they significantly help national research and educational network for their development and operation. Maybe some points of view express our colleagues from GIANT.
Well, I'm a strong believer in these regional projects. I would like to take the opportunity to thank the European Union again. They have been supporting the rollout of regional networks across the world since 2003. GIANT-like infrastructures exist in all continents of the world thanks to the European Union. That cannot be said differently. However, I always like it, and it was in a national conference once that I heard the statement, well, we believe in NRENs. As a national government, we believe in NRENs. We would create our own NREN, and we would create our regional backbone anyway, because we believe it needs to be done. What the European Union does, they help us to be faster. And I think this is the essential point. I think these projects are a stimulant. They raise the awareness about NRENs. They raise the value of NRENs. They make it very clear. But they should never be seen as the one and only way forward. Then there needs to be a clear understanding across all the governments, all in the region, to say, yes, EAP Connect is great. We're glad it exists. But even if it didn't exist, we would still have to do it and want to do it. And that needs to be the way forward, I think, to sustainability.
Yeah, it is a fact that we have some digital gaps, and this kind of the project is really helping us to remove it as soon as possible. It is a kind of the trigger or some kind of the accelerator. Yes, how we could to spend the minimum time, yes, to achieve the same level what we have in the West Europe. Yeah, it is the same case not only for the Moldova, but it is as well, I think. We still have a lot of the things to learn, yes, how, and in the other EU initiative, yeah, because yes, we joining about sometimes 20 years ago for this community. And yes, we have a lot of the issue to fulfill. Thank you very much.
I guess this event is, it's showing that there is an impact, because there are a lot of people here, there are a lot of you have a very, important participation from the government, and that's this is saying that you have the attention, you have to, to benefit of this opportunity, and you have to, to educate, the smallest university in Moldova, that they need a special connectivity to the European research area, because they are saying that, okay, we have only 1,000 students, we are not so important, we are not so. The big advantage of this connectivity is that the smallest universities have the biggest advantages. Maybe much more bigger advantages than bigger universities and bigger research,
Thank you to all for your valuable contributions and comments. Maybe we have questions from auditorium. Some comments, additional comments.
Thank you. I would like focus it on some aspects of the after our discussion about focus it on the aspects development our NRN in IP regionals, because it's a little different from regionals of Central Europe due to different circumstances, but main idea it is to increase NRNs, each NRNs as is. But for what? Main idea existing of the NRNs now in our time, it is to make the services for research and education community. Services it is main task our network. Services may be different. To the services I belong internet access to. It is one of the services, but mainly another services which focus to the research and education community. But because internet services, we can receive it from any other commercial providers. What we need to do? I think we need to cooperate with all NRNs in Europe and outside of Europe to unite our activity in increases this quantity of the services. If some services exist in one country, in one NRN, it must to be achieved to another NRNs, to another users. It is one of the points. Sorry. It is one of the points. Second point, it is to develop new services. We have in Giant, in NRNs, most attractive service, it is a drone. By the way, it is some locomotive to attractive users in Ukraine especially. The example, this locomotive NS, it is increasing quantity of the users from, not user, but access point of the drone from 2 in last year to more 100 in this year. Some calculated it is more 400% increasing and so on. But it is really a good service which attractive users and we have new connection due to this service to our network for new connection of the universities. Fun of this connection is virtual, but it is not so important, because if we have connection, NREN have connection to users, to university, we have some agreement with university, we have the channel to receiving and exchange of the information, exchange hours, to propose our new services, to propose our activities, to inform our university about some events need, and so on. It is all.
Thank you. And one additional. Yes.
My name is Tiziana Ferrari. I'm a technical director at EGI, and perhaps I would like to add a couple of comments to strengthen the importance of sustainability and longer-term funding of NRENs at national level. The national networking infrastructure is a fundamental enabler of research, and in modern science, more and more national researchers work with assets which are not maintained or produced in the country. So most of the health and medical data is typically in other regions of Europe or the world, and the same in astronomy, astrophysics, energy physics has been mentioned. So in modern science, researchers need a network infrastructure in order to get the data and the community-specific applications, which are typically developed and provided outside the country. So the network is the necessary plumbing without which research cannot exist. And this is about fostering the excellence of national research with the other countries in Europe and beyond. And I would say once the sustainability of a network infrastructure is achieved, the recommendation is that the national funders also look at the complementary cloud, HTC, HPC, a software infrastructure for researchers, a national data infrastructure for depositing open research data and publications, which are the other elements, enabling elements, together with computing and networking that support open science and international collaborations. So having a sustainable NREN is a necessary element, and I would say one of the major building blocks which are necessary to create an ecosystem of national services on top of the network, without which national research cannot exist and achieve excellence. So I think a project like EaPEC Connect, I'm bringing EGI, which is a European computing infrastructure point of view here, is an essential element without which any kind of international collaboration cannot happen. And we are very grateful that this project exists, because it's an instrument also to foster and to bring this message to the national funders in this region. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your valuable comments. We have last question. Okay.
No, one more. I raise my hand from the beginning.
Okay.
So my name is Dumitru Drumia. I am from Moldova. And so it's not a comment, it's like a question to last speaker who talked about small universities and about the advantages. So my question is, what kind of advantages, and if they are these advantages, how these advantages could be used in cooperation with research centers or with big universities with big capacities. So what kind of tools and mechanisms do you see how these advantages, if they are, could be implemented? Thank you.
I guess the question is for me. It was, you know, it was for a small entity, for a small research entity, it's quite difficult to be connected using high-speed to have high-speed connectivity, to be in line with the you know, other universities that could invest more in the you know, in the connectivity, in the services. So you will be you will be on the same level with the big bigger universities. And you could participate far more easier in any European projects if you are inside the community than if you are in the outside of the community. So that's the main idea. And I guess you will find the advantages in really short time. I can say that, you know, in the, I don't know, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, smaller universities, smaller, you know, institutes in Iași came to us and said, okay, I would like to be connected to something which is called GÉANT, because I can benefit of the I don't know, EduRoam service. So you can benefit of the same services as the bigger universities. But that, my point was a bit different. So the government should help the NREN to bring services not only to big universities in the, you know, in the capital, but to bring NREN services to all the universities and all the research, you know, groups in the country. So that was the idea, to help the NREN to reach the smallest universities in the country.
Thank you. And yes, Eric, we have already out of our schedule.
I'll be very short, Peter. I'd like to share a thought about positioning of the NREN. I heard some of the panelists talk about competing with the telco market. I think that is not the case at all, especially not in 2018. I see the NREN as a player on the demand side of the market, not on the buying, sorry, on the not on the supply side of the market, but on the demand side of the market. The NREN aggregates what the universities and research institutes and teaching hospitals need from the telecommunications market. And together, the NREN buys on behalf of the universities on the market. As soon as you add more services on the trust and identity layer and on the application layer, you see that the NREN has a unique position of trust among the universities, research institutes, etc. A commercial telco will never ever be able to achieve that position. So I think the NREN is an extremely important asset for a country.
Thank you. I fully agree with you. Last question.
Okay, it's not a question, more of the comment. I'm Raimundas Duminauskas from LitNet Lithuania, and I use the opportunity that the microphone is quite close to me. I would like to stress one more point that I think is important for the sustainability of the NRNs. I mean, we all pretty much agreed on the fact that that NRNs are the national assets, and that they are some way of the funding from the public sector should be available to the NRNs to be sustainable. But on the other hand, NRNs should be effective in what they do from the NRN side, so that they do connect even the smallest universities. They do provide the services, the high-level services, and they become a part of the community, because what Erik Jan just said was very important. NRNs are in a unique position of trust, so they have to become part of the community. They should not be a provider of the services to the community, but should be rather a part of the community, so that they participate together to create those services and to operate those services with the community, to foster the entire ecosystem, if you will. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we understanding this comment very well, because without understanding what is needed for our user community, then we will be not able to create what are needed, what services are needed to end users, to our institutions and our teams. Thank you. So our time is over, and thank you to all panelists and participators. in our discussion.
you start. You just... So the next session is about to start. Please take a seat. With a session on e-infrastructures for open science, chaired by Annabel Grant.
Thank you, Leonie. Tiziana. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. It's actually very good to do this presentation after the panel, and we heard a lot of comments there about NRENs being a national asset. And the aim of this session is to tell you a little bit more about how we collaborate between e-infrastructures. That is to say, the link between the network and the services on top of the network, and how those work with compute, be that high throughput computing or HPC, and how we link that to the data. And all of this ecosystem together, the network, compute, and data, how that works together towards open science. So today, in terms of the objectives of the session, they're actually very clear. So a quick hands up, everybody, if you have heard about the European Open Science Cloud. Okay, that's very good. Now, hands up if you actually know what it is. Okay. And finally, the European Data Infrastructure. Has anyone heard of that? Okay, so we're very good. So we're halfway there. So really, I'm just going to give you some scene setting, a little bit more about the European Open Science Cloud and the European Data Infrastructure. The main thing, and the reason that we're here today, is to explain how you can benefit and also how you can participate and get more involved in these initiatives. Because let's be clear, the Commission is putting a lot of money into these initiatives, and you too can benefit. And it's really important that the countries in the digital divide and making sure everybody has access to all these resources that are so useful for research and education. So in terms of the presentations you're going to hear today, I'll be very quickly setting the scene. Then I'm just going to explain a little bit about how GÉANT supports open science and e-science. We've heard today a lot about the GÉANT network, but I've got some specific slides to really show the benefits of the high-speed network and how that supports open science. Then I'm absolutely delighted to be able to do a presentation on behalf of OpenAIR. Then we'll hear from Tiziana presenting on the EOSC Hub. So just to explain these two projects, the OpenAIR Advanced and the EOSC Hub project, these are the two main implementation projects. And between them, at the end, they're meant to be at least implementing the start of the European Open Science Cloud. And I'm also delighted to have Marie-Hélène from Praise, who's going to tell you a little bit more about high-performance computing. So again, linking up network, compute, all together in the system. So very quickly, we know that GÉANT does lots of different things. I'm going to be focusing on this left-hand one. So my role within GÉANT is to make sure that we have all the collaborations in place, to make sure that we're working with all the other European infrastructure projects, so we're sort of all working together in harmony. So I don't really need to say what's on this slide, but here you can see an overview. So many years ago, when the Commission were putting together what they originally called the European Cloud Initiative, they had these three elements. And today, as I say, we'll be presenting the two main implementation projects, and down here around the European Data Infrastructure PRACE as well. So that's what we'll be covering today. And this is how I see GÉANT. And you can see that the GÉANT bubble covers both things, because really GÉANT is the infrastructure at the bottom that serves all of this stuff. So all of this stuff happens because of GÉANT and the specialized services that we put on top of GÉANT. So following on from that, just a couple of slides about GÉANT as a key enabler of European e-science. So we've all seen this slide, but we were talking about the importance, and Eric Yan mentioned it as well. We now have 800 gigabits of shared capacity to North America, and capacity over to the Far East, etc. So we're connecting those 130 countries around the world. And most of those as well have EduRoam and EduGain. And I was also very pleased this morning to be able to connect straight to EduRoam. I was in Montenegro a couple of weeks ago, straight away onto EduRoam. So wherever you go across the world, these added value Géant services are there to support you. So this is a very nice slide just to explain the power of research and education networks and why we need those. And going back to the point that was made before, again, about us not being a telecoms operator. Because if we were a telecoms operator, this is what you'd see. So what we did is we sent 10 gigabits of data between London and Canberra, and this is what we got. So what we wanted to do was send the whole 10 gig. On the left-hand side, this is the public internet. So you can see you're getting about 1% of what you're paying for. So it's peaking around 1. And in terms of Géant and the research education partners, we're right up there to 10. And I think that says it all in terms of probably one of our largest users. So really just trying to show you that the power of the network and why it's so important. But of course, the network has a number of challenges. And again, I think this slide shows it very well. So we know that we're going to have some enormous exascale computers. They are going to generate a lot of data. But it's not just exascale that's generating that data. We have all the genomics. We have all the data coming in from Copernicus, which is all meaning that the total network traffic over Géant has actually doubled over 3 years. So what does that mean? We've got a lot of traffic. It means we need a new network for these new challenges. And what's very nice here is we're going to have fiber across Europe. And what's important in terms for the EaPEC countries is you can see we have Romania down here and all the way through to Poznan. So the aim is to get a very resilient fiber ring all across Europe so that we can start helping reduce the digital divide that we're seeing. So before, we were having shorter term contracts and a lot of lease line, and hopefully we're going to be moving towards having a lot of fibers, which, as I said, will have a really positive impact, we expect, on the EaP countries. I mentioned EuroHPC and high-performance computing. Géant is also a key enabler of the future HPC ecosystem. So I'm talking about petascale, pre-exascale, and exascale computing. And we hope, once again, as I said, we will be the foundation network for helping EuroHPC happen. And we're going to be doing some special developments across both our network and our services to enable those exascale computers to have a nice, quick network. Because when you're a researcher, you're doing all your models, you're producing lots of data. What you want to do is you want to get all that data out to your collaborators, or you want to store it as well. And you need a very fast network for that. And the important point here is flexible, intelligent, and programmable. And making sure that we host plenty of end-to-end services, and that's what we'll be doing. So what we hope is that the user experience is going to look something like this. So on the left-hand side, we have the researcher in their home institution. Then we have the NREN going through Géant across the network, all the way through to Prey. So that's what we're expecting to happen. It happens pretty much now, but with the new fiber that we'll be getting on the network, we expect that to happen even more. So that's a very short presentation on how Géant is supporting open science and e-science and supporting both EGI and PRACE in the high throughput and high performance computing. I'm now just going to give a short presentation on behalf of the Open Air Advanced project. So the Open Air advanced project is all about supporting open science. So as you may know, open science represents a new approach to the scientific process based on cooperative work and new ways of diffusing knowledge by using digital technologies and new collaborative tools. So the key idea around open science is a systemic change in the way science and research have been carried out in the last 50 years. So we're moving away from standard practices of publishing our research results in scientific publications towards sharing and using all available knowledge at an earlier stage in the research process, with the idea being that we can foster more cross-disciplinary work by having this science open and within repositories, so that different sets of scientists can all be looking at the same research. And fundamentally, this is what the Open Air Advanced project is there to foster and to move forward on. So essentially, they're supporting open science and scholarly communication, both in terms of monitoring what's about there and supporting open science publishing, with the main stakeholders being these on the right-hand side. So they have a number of products and services available on their website, as you can see here, exploreopenair.eu. So this is in terms of having access to about 21 million publications, making the publications more transparent, making them all in one place, and making them available, again, as I was saying, in order to foster this cross-disciplinarity. So this is really nice. Hands up if you've seen this before or are even aware of these 21 million publications. Has anyone seen this before? Okay, only a couple of hands, so I'm pleased that I'm showing these slides. Open Air has a number of services for researchers. Zenodo, you may know about, but this is a very nice repository for all researchers to use and to upload their research outputs onto. If you're interested in anonymizing your data sets, we've got Amnesia there for you, because we know that not all data sets can be open. Some of them are going to need to be hidden, and this is a nice product that they have around there. And as we are all aware of, it's very, very important around everything to get the training around open science. And the Open Air Advanced project has a number of trainings that are available in terms of how to foster open science. And that includes a lot of support materials. So please go and have a look at what support and training is available around open science. They also have the Open Air Scholarly Explorer, which is a data and literature interlinking service. So those are the main services for researchers. Go and have a look. In terms of content providers, the other thing that you can do is put your information up on the content provider dashboard to track your research impact. And finally, for funding bodies, hopefully we've got some representatives from funding bodies. This is a really, really nice portal because, of course, as a funder, you want to find out how many publications have come from your set of funding. And this is a way of monitoring this in a very easy way. The feedback that I got specifically on this from funders is that it's a very, very good service and worth having a look at. And then finally, they have the Open Air Scholarly Communication Graph. So the idea here is to collect the metadata about all the products of science. So what do I mean by that? Literature, data sets, software, other products. And then collecting the metadata about other entities of science. So you've got the funders, the projects, the authors, the organizations, and the data sources. And then in addition to that, you collect and infer the product-to-product links and the product entity links. And the idea is that then you can graphically represent across metadatas and across projects and literature sets, and just get a better view of what's happening. The other thing that you can do here is you can collect usage statistics from institutional repositories, and all of this will be deduplicated. As we know, in some cases, you get within a repository 2 or 3 of exactly the same thing. So the deduplicated aspect here is very important. And the final slide here, how can you get involved? So you can see here, they've got a full catalogue of services, catalogue.openair.eu. We've got handbooks, open science guides, fact sheets, all the information about training. Also a beta version of the research community dashboard, which I was talking about before, which is a really nice virtual environment where you can link your research results, monitor and report. And last week I was in Lisbon, and there was a really nice demo on this research community dashboard. And I would urge you to go and have a look at that. It's a very powerful visualization about what you can achieve when you link up the research results in a virtual environment. There's also a number of APIs that you can go and have a look at, and it's all there on the OpenAIRE website within the OpenAIRE Advanced project. As you can see, these are not my slides, so I'm also thanking Irina Kuchma for putting these slides together. So that comes to the end of my presentation. I'm just wondering if at this stage there's, and then we'll move over on to Tiziana. Oh, wait a minute, we had the gentleman over here first. Sorry, we'll get to you in a second.
My name is Igor Kojukaru. I'm from Information Society Development Institute for the Republic of Moldova. We develop a national database of publications, national bibliometric instruments, and we try to register in Open Door to be part of Open Air initiative, but we doesn't have enough some results. No one says something, some feedback for us, and we want to help us to be part of this initiative, because we have, I think, more than 45% of all publication open access, and we want to increase the visibility, and that is what we kind of support. We need not only connectivity, but how to help that the services that are in the giant network to be more appropriate to the end users. And we need to more resources, not only for connectivity, but to for supporting and for teaching, to understand what kind of services and how we can institutionalize in our research or universities. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Igor, and thank you for this. I'll have a look. I will have a look. I think the first thing to say is that I'll make sure that, thank you, I'll make sure that the OpenAIRE guys get in touch with you. From my perspective, with my Géant hat on, it's always good to hear from our users and what they want. And really the purpose of NRENS and of Géant is to make sure that we're developing the products and services that you need and listening to and understanding what you want. So I think probably the next stage is for you to have a dialogue with RENAM and potentially also with Géant, and we'll see how we can move things forward and make sure that you get the services that you need. It's very important. But thank you for your comment. I think we just had a question at the front here.
Yes, I have a short question about how many users, for example, in OpenAIRE exist now, or from which countries? Maybe from only Central Europe with well-known English language, or maybe in the outside of this central core of the Europe, because it is some maybe indicators for us what to do to attract users from Ukraine, inside of Ukraine, to this service. I think it is a very important service, but still a very, very, very small quantity of users apply this service in Ukraine.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that we don't have more users in Ukraine, and I guess the job of the EaPEC Connect project and working with Géant is to help you get new users to use these services that have already been funded through the Commission. And certainly the idea of these repositories is to put everything in one place. So I know in terms of open air users, you're absolutely right that the majority of users at the moment are maybe more towards Western Europe. But I think it's our job to take the message out to more countries, including the EaPEC countries, and that's one of the reasons we're here and having this presentation, about the importance of using what's out there, knowing what's out there, and really making these repositories have more than 21 million. We would love to have all the data sets and all the research from the Ukraine into these repositories as well, so that we can get that cross-disciplinarity working, and that also your researchers can benefit from the 20-odd million bits of data that are in there as well. So the more people that know about it, the more people will use it. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you very much. Right, thank you very much for those questions. I'm delighted to hand over to my colleague Tiziana. And Tiziana is going to tell us a little bit more about the other implementation project of the European Open Science Cloud. So over to you, Tiziana.
So I start introducing myself. I'm technical director of EGI. It's the European Infrastructure for Distributed Computing. And I'm here as coordinator of EUSCAB, which is one of the implementation projects of the European Open Science Cloud. And for me, this is a golden opportunity for discussing today and tomorrow how, as a project, we can cooperate and work together more and more with the countries which are in the EaPEC region, considering that today Bulgaria and Romania and Estonia are partners of the project, but we don't have lots of coverage in this region. So this is for me an opportunity to engage with you and understand how we can help as a project to be more connected with the EUSC agenda of the European Commission. I will start with a slide which is about the European Open Science Cloud. This is, for those who are familiar with it, a high-level vision and initiative coming from the European Commission with participation of DG Connect and RTD. Started in 2016 and starting its implementation phase now. So what are the challenges of the European Open Science Cloud? I'd like to make a few examples. We are today in a stage in Europe where we have a major computing infrastructures, distributed ones like PRACE, CGI. We have an excellent backbone and national research networks which make computing and data accessible. We are now at a stage of having many tens of research infrastructures which are active at European and international level as major research data producer or consumers. However, all these initiatives and infrastructures are funded in an independent and uncoordinated manner. And quite often researchers have to face different policies and access mechanisms. So to give you an example, I'm a researcher, I want to access Elixir data, but that's a lot of data. I need to download it in my lab, and I need an infrastructure for analyzing the data, and I need also HPC computing cycles for doing processing. So how do I bring all these assets together? It's quite challenging and almost impossible, especially when we have to handle with large amount of computing and large amount of data. So even if we have now in Europe the building blocks available, the problem is now how to connect these building blocks so that they're really usable for researchers, and not just researchers in one country, but across international collaborations. I would like to mention a policy problem that the European Open Science Cloud is trying to tackle, and this is how international users can access national assets. This is a problem today probably solved in the GEAN community and totally unsolved for other infrastructures which require major investments in computing and storage in order to enable international collaborations and recovery of marginal costs. So in practical terms, how, for example, in Moldova, can I support users coming from the United States, from other countries in Europe, and how do I make sure that I have a matching funding nationally and internationally to support this service in the long run? This is a major political problem that the European Commission is facing and tackling with the European Open Science Cloud. EOSCAB is the first implementation project, and it's a large collaboration started from EGI, EUDAT, Indigo Data Cloud, participated by Jean, but also involving 18 major research infrastructures in Europe, and this is perhaps the first project where we are really closely working together with research infrastructures which bring data and the thematic services into a single integrated platform. We participate in the European Open Science Cloud, aiming at contributing to the architecture. So we will, as I will show later, bring a larger number of services and major data repositories across Europe. We help with the marketplace, which is an online platform to make the fair data coming from the research infrastructures more discoverable. And we help integrating the service portfolio, making it accessible with some core fundamental services like federated AAI. We often talk about AAI, leveraging EduGain. The purpose is to essentially allow every user using own credentials to access the services which come from different providers in the world in the same way today EduRoam allows access to networking. It's also about matters of policies. So what are the criteria that service providers have to meet in order to bring their own services? So we are aiming in the project to pull also services coming from national providers and national funders so that these are accessible, free at point of use to users coming from other countries. In the service catalog, this is a picture showing how we organize it. We have in dark research enabling services, so these are typically those which are directly accessed by researchers. In light blue, the access enabling ones like AAI, but also the marketplace and the policies. And the hub, which is a set of procedures, a very lightweight service management system where different research infrastructures and infrastructures come together to obey to the same set of policies, primarily security policies and SLA management processes. The purpose is to simplify the access to a large number of services, and here clockwise we start from, I would say, the discover and reuse. For example, if I am a researcher and through OpenAIRE I find that a given publication has interesting data, where can I download the data which is necessary for my research? And once I have the data, how do I make sure I have an infrastructure for analyzing such data? And after that, of course, the researcher will produce additional new data. Where do I deposit and curate my data? And if I'm generating new publications, in which repository am I going to publish my publications, linking them with the data? So the objective is to try together with the infrastructures and research infrastructures to tackle this cycle. And this is why I also said in the sustainability session, the countries that are now starting and consolidating their national infrastructures have a golden opportunity. Do not just look at networking, because networking will have to be sooner or later be complemented by computing and data infrastructures at a national level that allow your NRENs to be connected to a European system. We work with, as I said, many research infrastructures, humanities, engineering, medical and health sciences, and natural sciences. And this is the first endeavor we are having in trying to pull the major services coming from these big European initiatives together. These are the thematic services. What about the foundation? So the computing infrastructure we federate is coming from EGI. It's today the largest distributed infrastructure for high-performance computing and high-throughput computing. It's complementing PRAISE with cloud and HTC services. And we have a major participation from Eastern Europe. So we are very lucky, but definitely we need more sustainability and consolidated funding for having national cloud and HTC infrastructures available for the national researchers, but also for these international infrastructures. This diagram on the right shows from 2010 how the demand for computing has been growing. So we have now an exponential growth of pooled capacity across Europe. Without these, researchers would not be able to analyze the massive amount of data which is produced in Europe. And the reason why this is useful and necessary is not technical, it's because the funding of every single country would not be sufficient to provide the necessary capacity to do this. So in the same way, GEAN is the way to scale national funding and make European backbone more sustainable. The same is for distributed computing. Without pooling budgets and national funders, this infrastructure would not be available to European researchers. This is similar to EUDAT, which is our pillar for data management. They bring together major data centers across Europe, providing services for preservation, but also for having a personal workspace in a safe environment where data can be shared across different researchers. Going back to EOSCAB, we are really looking to engage with EAP countries, and we want to bring more national services into this federation. We have a process, and this is particularly aimed at national providers that are mature and already operational. So this means cloud providers, HTC providers at university and academic level, but also data providers and providers of specific analytic services. These are typically developed by researchers, for researchers, and they benefit a lot from having a place, a marketplace at European level where they can be promoted and exposed to a bigger user base. What do? We typically take these requests of providers on board. We have a lightweight validation process, and then these are brought into a catalog and promoted. So we are really looking forward to establish a collaboration with EAP countries. We have a marketplace where all these services are exposed. This is particularly relevant to initiatives that don't have any interest in having their own catalog online and maintaining it. This is a facility provided for free by the project where anybody can publicize and share services with others across Europe and beyond. So coming to my last slide, EOSCAB is just at the beginning. Started in 2018. We have 3 years ahead of us. We are really looking forward to cooperate more with countries in the Eastern European region. We would like to leverage existing NRENs to promote a federation of data infrastructures available nationally, cloud infrastructures, so that your national researchers can also, thanks to this reciprocity principle, not only use their own national facilities, but also use the European ones federated in the European Open Science Cloud. The vision of the Commission is that this infrastructure will be free at point of use, with a commitment from the Commission to provide an operational budget to pay for international access. So this will be probably a sustainability mechanism that will boost and make your national infrastructure more accessible to international user groups. The business model of the European Open Science Cloud is very high in the agenda. A governance structure is being put in place as we speak. So we hope that with the coming year, this business model will also boost participation and interest in being part of the European Open Science Cloud to complement national funding streams that still are available but need to mobilize and be increased across Europe. So that's all. Any question? Hi.
Thank you very much for the interesting presentation, and I believe that it's a very crucial initiative in order to integrate different types of infrastructures in a European level. And it's very nice that you are ready to collaborate, but as far as I see, there is no voice of Eastern Partnership countries in the EOSCAP, and perhaps in a few years we will see that we have digital divide because we don't know what's going on internally in this big initiative. And what I would like to find out if there is any opportunity somehow to be presented as a region in the EOSCAP in order to understand what's going on and how we can contribute in this big family.
So thanks. Yeah, it's an excellent question. So what I would like to get before I leave to return to office is to understand from the partners like Armenia and the others in the region how you would like to contribute. And there are different levels. There's a technical contribution by being part of the federation, but also a way to connect with other countries who are already engaged in the project and to give visibility and also create a roadmap. So what can we do concretely in the coming months together? What are the low-hanging fruits? What can we achieve with the two projects working together? So this is really my interest in being in this conference, to understand from you what is also useful in the region and what we can do together. So let's say it's an open question for me, and we can continue during the rest of the conference.
Yeah, it's a very nice presentation, but I would like to ask you, how can you access this portal?
So as a user, so from the demand side, this is about discovering services being authenticated and authorized using EduGain, ORCID, other institutional identity providers, place requests for services which are published, which will be handled and addressed by the providers which are chosen by the user. From a provider point of view, this is about committing to be part of the initiative by publicizing the services and committing to an operational level that ensures the users can trust the service which is brought into the European Open Science Cloud. So this is, if you want, from the two angles. The Commission, specifically for EOSCAP, asked to provide all services for free. So in the project, for the providers that are already in the consortium, we have an instrument which is called virtual access, which means the services which are demonstrating access and interest from user communities have a way to recover funding partially for marginal costs through project funding. So we, through this mechanism, offer the services like compute, storage, personal workspaces, access to analytics for free. So this is completely free for users. As you can imagine, the funding available is 33 million. I know EGI on a yearly basis is worth in the Federation 250 million euros from national funds. So we have no ambition to be able to deliver with this small funding major amount of storage and computing, but definitely sufficient resources to do piloting, which we hope will be also a seed in order to create future collaborations between research communities and national providers.
You mentioned that computing and storage resources will be free for, but what about data? So the data which will be presented in this project, will be this also free for the use, or what will be conditions? Because this is important also.
Yes, so there are two aspects in this question. One is the policy, and the policies for access are open access, which means also policy-based access, meaning, for example, if you have a genomics, the data will be open for access only if, as a user community or a project, you are authenticated by the data providers. And this is in compliance with the policies defined by the research infrastructures which are bringing their data. For other types of open data, and I would like to make an example, which is Copernicus data, all the Sentinel data. In the project, we have a number of public research infrastructures which bring together Copernicus data and computing, so the cloud infrastructure, so that you can, for free, access and process the data in these cloud infrastructures. And we also have some of the commercial partners who are member of the DS Copernicus initiative, which is the Data and Information Access Service. So this means making this data available for free, also for analysis. So this is about coupling together both the open data and the computing. DS in Copernicus is specifically aimed for commercial actors, so typically the computing is paid in this project. The focus is researchers, and they will get the data and the computing for free paid in the project.
Okay, thank you very much, Tiziana. It's good to see a number of questions and a lot of interest, and that's one of the reasons that it's important that we hear about EOSC Hub and see how we can get you more involved, because as you saw, there's a lot of really good stuff in there. And as Tiziana said, the EOSC portal will be launched at the end of November, and then there will be one place to go with all this information on it, which again should make everything much more transparent in terms of what's available all in one place. So to round off the afternoon, I'm delighted to welcome my colleague Marjolein from PRACE, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about what's available through the Partnership for Advanced Computing in Europe. Over to you, Marjolein.
Good afternoon, everyone. Annabelle, thank you for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me to be here today. As Annabelle already said, I work for the Partnership for Advanced Computing in Europe, but the short, easier term is PRACE. Would not want everyone to thank you. I would not want everyone to have to repeat those words all the time. It's a bit long. So I'll show you briefly what we do, what we sort of have achieved, and how you can get involved. I'm not going to go into very much detail because I'm conscious of time, but I'm still here all day tomorrow. So if there's any questions tonight, tomorrow, feel free to reach out. So PRACE provides open access to world-class HPC systems to European scientists and researchers, both in academia and industry. We have at the moment, we have 7 systems. I will show you those in a bit, with a variety of architecture. We have one unified peer review process. So all the applications that we receive go through one process. We don't have you don't have to address the national level to get access to the PRACE systems. And we try also to collaborate with European HPC industrial users and suppliers to create more connections between science and industry. What did we achieve so far in just about 10 years of our existence? So more than 650 scientific projects have been enabled, have received access to the tier 0 systems, as we call them. We have supplied or more than by a prime does not have the same nationality resource. So that tells you that it's very international. We also have more than 50 companies so far. I think actually this number is slightly outdated. I think it's more than 60 now, but anyway, that have received access to PRACE for industrial use. And this includes SMEs as well as large corporations. We have a very large training network where we have more than 12,000 people already participated in training courses organized by our members. And for the moment we are the only e-infrastructure landmark on the ESRI roadmap. Just to show you where we are more or less in what we call the HPC ecosystem. So we see this ecosystem as a pyramid where the tier 2, as we call it, are the regional systems operated by research institutions. And then the tier 1 are the national systems operated actually by PRACE partners and members. And then there is what we call the tier 0, which are the systems that belong to our partners, our hosting members, but that are open for access through PRACE. And it's up to PRACE to connect the tier 1 with the tier 0 as well, so that there is a flow of research going from one level to another, and we are continuously upgrading. quick overview of who our partners are. So you will see that we too have some work to do to make sure that the Eastern Partnership countries are getting into PRAISE. So I do invite you to see if there's interest on your side to become a member of PRAISE. We have different levels of members. So I already mentioned the hosting members. The hosting members provide access to the Tier 0 system. So they own and operate those 7 systems I mentioned. And provide the core hours to PRAISE for us to distribute across the projects that pass our peer review process. And then we have the general partners, and they fund what we call the high-level support teams. And these are teams of experts that support projects to make sure that their codes and software run on the highest level systems. And then all 26 partners work together to provide high-value services. We have implementation projects for this. My department on communication and dissemination is part of this. I get a lot of support from the partners for this. And a number of other things. So to show you very quickly the 7 systems we have, these are the top 500 levels that were announced in July of this year. So in November they will probably change again. And we now have close to 110 petaflops of cumulated peak performance on offer. To tell you also that the offer is free of charge, so nobody has to pay to access our systems. The way you can access is, first and foremost, is project access. This is the 19 billion core hours that I mentioned earlier. This is the main way of accessing. You apply with a project and we peer review it, and then you get access. Then we have preparatory access. This is meant for benchmarking and optimizing codes. For instance, if you want to move from one architecture to another, or from a tier 1 to a tier 0. You get expert advice and time to test and scale, but it's not meant to actually do research. It's meant to port and optimize the code. Then we have the SHAPE program, which is becoming quite a thing. This is actually meant especially for small and medium-sized enterprises who feel that HPC could help them create a better business case or come up with innovations or improve their technology, but they don't really know how to start, or they don't really have the resources themselves, so they can also apply to PRAISE to get this free of charge access. And then last but not least, we have the Distributed European Computing Initiative that we call DECI for short. And this is actually the PRAISE partners at tier 1 level that are exchanging their resources to support the science in the different countries, to make sure that people have access to various computers. So then some of you may have heard of PRAISE 2, which is the second phase of PRAISE. And actually the basic principle of that second phase, which runs until 2020, is to compute you must contribute. So if you want to make use of the PRAISE resources, you have to be a member essentially, and you have to contribute to the PRAISE 2 program. And this actually means that the principal investigator of any project that is applying to PRAISE Access should come from one of the countries that contributes to PRAISE 2 in order to be eligible. So especially for the countries here today, they'd have to connect to some of the PRAISE members. I'm sure you have even better connections than I have to offer you, but you'd have to connect and team up with them, and then get access and use and share the data. Then a very, very short slide on SHAPE. Enterprises. And this because this has the added value of drawing industry and creating synergies between science and industry. I won't go into the details, but please feel free to ask me later. Same for our training offering. So the training is open to anyone. You don't have to be a member of PRAISE or contribute to anything to be able to participate in the trainings we offer. All the trainings are also free of charge. And they are being held all around Europe. We have 10 PRAISE training centers, but also the the members who are not officially a training center offer different types of trainings, different levels, from entry level, how to use HPC, to very, very specialized trainings on certain types of codes. We have a web portal for this. You'll find it through the Praise website, and I encourage you to have a look there and see what will fit for your needs. And last but not least, we have a number of events where you can also get involved and connect with the people in Praise and the members of Praise to further find synergies. So I mainly want to mention the European HPC Summit Week, which will take place in Poznan next year. But we are also present at ISC in Germany, at SC in the United States, and a lot of other HPC-related events throughout the year. I consider this one also to be one of those, as well as the I4R conference that we did last year. Then I'm only going to show you my contact details in case somebody wants to get in touch after the conference, and I think I took enough time. Any questions? No questions? Well, great. I love it when I'm so clear that there are no questions. Thank you, Annabelle.
Oh, wait, Katherine's got her hand up. Is it a question or a... Oh, a question. Excellent. Go ahead.
Do your worst.
Yeah, I try. I'd like to know, I mean, I'm very impressed by the number of 12,000 people that have been trained in your activities. Can you give a bit of background where these 12,000 people came from, and what do you need to do if you want to be trained?
I don't have a pie chart or something at hand to tell you where they came from. They mainly come from the Praise member countries, but we do get a lot of trainees also from the United States and from Asia, especially Japan. And what to do to be trained by Praise is merely to register for one of our trainings and come.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I hope we've... Thank you, Marjolein. So I hope we've achieved the objectives of the session, which is just to update you on what's going on, what's available, and we really hope that the EAP countries, and maybe over coffee you'll speak with Tiziana and Marjolein and find out more about how you can get involved. Thank you very much.
So we have 15 minutes coffee break now. We start again with the last session on digital heritage, digital libraries and cybersecurity at 4 o'clock.
Hi, Raul, do you hear me? 1 1. 1 1. Do you hear me? Yes, I do not hear you. One, one, 1, 2, 3, 4. Checking the sound. No, Raul, I don't hear you. Wait. Can you check your microphone at your notebook? Raul, wait, we check sound from our side. Где, блядь, это наша кнопка? Где эти орлы? Yes, we check, guys, from sound group, mute all input sources except this microphone. Are you desktop? От нашего ящика вот этот вот канал. Raul, do you hear? Do you hear us? Please speak something. No, not here. Guys. Wait. Okay, thank you. We hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Let us.
There
Yes. We will decrease. Not here. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you hear me?
Now I can hear.
Okay. We will decrease a little level of microphone.
Now I don't.
Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4. Не слышит нас. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1.
Now I can hear a little bit.
Wait. Okay. Guys, configuring.
I hear a little bit, but there is some kind of whistle, some noise.
Wait. 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Гриша, снижай уровень чувствительности, там свист идет. 1. One, 2, 3, 4.
Yes, I can hear it.
Okay, we change microphone. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you hear noise?
Yes.
Guys, decrease. One, 2, 3, 4.
Maybe let's test.
We hear you very well.
Okay, but what about, can you see my screen as well?
We see you, not your screen. Can you share your screen? Yes, it's a button, a right button.
But I cannot share for some reason.
Wait.
Maybe I log in again because I cannot share my screen.
Button for screen sharing is right to the camera
Yes.
button, and I see at my presentations that it's clear. You can share. Is it active, this button?
I log off and I log in again to the conversation.
Ну, оттас цикать нечему. 1. Сейчас перезайдет. Как он сейчас выключится вообще? Что? Его сейчас нет. Так вот, выключится и вот идет цикание. Мы сейчас чем занимаемся? Мы как раз настраиваем. Спасибо. We see you.
Yes, for some reason I cannot share my screen, and I don't know what is the problem.
I will leave the conference. Let's see.
No, it doesn't allow to share the screen for some reason.
Does this button active?
It is active, but when I press it doesn't work.
No screen for selecting?
Yeah, I cannot share the screen.
You use application or you use Chrome browser?
I use Chrome.
Wait. Я понял. Сейчас нам нужно сделать так, чтобы его... Я понял. Надо попробовать, чтобы он презентацию зашарил. Ну-ка, Гриша. Raul, can you send me your presentation? If you can't share the screen, we can use the second way. I will show you presentation and you can talk me next slide. Now we are checking.
Press the pound or hash key.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on. Thank you. Yeah, I think so, yeah. Yeah, I'll stay here. I need something to read, but that's...
So please take a seat. We're about to start the last session for today. Chair of the session will be Rachia Asatrian, pronounce that right, and cybersecurity.
Hello, good afternoon. So today we spoke a lot about the sustainability of the NRENs in the EAP Connect region. And of course, for the sustainability, it's quite important to have state support and also to provide some advanced services to our user communities. But also it's important to provide this infrastructure in a secure way and also to attract to have some more user communities. And in our region, I believe that the digital libraries and cultural heritage organizations have some crucial need advanced networking infrastructures. And the first talk, which will be presented by Valentino Cavalli. It's quite important to understand the experience of our European colleagues, how they tackle with these issues, which will be very important for us in the terms of the knowledge transfer, because we are facing the same problem in our region. So the first presentation, the title of the first presentation is Research Libraries Supporting Open Science Across Europe, and the floor is yours, Valentino.
Okay, thank you very much, Krash. And first of all, I would like to, just a very small sort of personal episode that, I mean, I'm very happy and I feel at home here in Moldova. I was remembering this morning when, you know, I first had some conversation with some of you, and I had to look back at the time. It was actually at TNC in Malaga in 2009, so it's been a long time, and since then I've been in this country a few times, and as I said, I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy to see the way the EaPEC Connect project has actually made a big step change, and I think I would like to congratulate my former colleagues from Géant for the achievement. So without any further ado, because time is tight, let me say, I mean, start with what I intended to, so there are a few things I would like to say about LIBER. LIBER, I work as an open science officer for LIBER, which is the primary research libraries in Europe. It has a long story. It was founded in 1971, and we have more than in the whole of Europe. Our members are as research libraries, so libraries that have research as the main focus, so university libraries, but we also have national libraries, which, as you know, are responsible for the cultural heritage of the countries, plus the special libraries, university consortia, but also individuals. More than 40 countries, I mean, members come from more than 40 countries, and 1/3 of the LIBER members are located in Southern and Eastern Europe. However, I did, check our database just before moving here, and we have only one library from the EaP region, whereas there are more than 40 members from the neighboring countries, and I counted, you know, starting from Poland, Romania, down to Turkey. So if you think about it, 40 countries means approximately, 40 libraries means approximately 10% of our membership. I think we, we would like to try and increase our participation and partnerships in the region. We not only have a network of libraries, but we also work with other organizations in the area of support for library, open science, open access, research data, and you see some of our partners in that slide there. So together with libraries and partners, we aim to enable research which is world-class, is collaborative, it's international, primarily cross-discipline, and increasingly data-intensive and open. So just a couple of slides I have about the LIBER strategy, which was launched a couple of years ago. We have 3 main focus areas for libraries as platforms for scholarly communication, as hubs for digital skills and services, and as partners in research infrastructures. So these are the sort of 3 key elements of the strategic ideas that LIBER has, and they want to promote their libraries community, in the next few years. One thing it's important to say is that libraries are, increasingly digital. I mean, especially when we talk about research libraries, forget about the sort of the idea of the stuffy, libraries with a lot of papers, but really things are more and more digital, and that's why for us open science is extremely important. Just a few things about the sort of the vision for 2022 research landscape. in the future is where I think open access is the main form of publishing. And I will actually focus a lot more in the following of this presentation about open access. Research data is fair, which means that not everything can actually be open, but the important thing is that data can be found, is accessible. So there are licenses that allow researchers to access the data, is interoperable, and primarily is reusable. These are really sort of the pillars of open science. Digital skills underpin a more open and transparent research life cycle. And I think very important in the context of this research infrastructure is as wide participation is tailored and scaled to the needs of the diverse disciplines. We have an annual conference, but I'm going to skip this quickly. One of the activities we do is advocacy. So there are LIBER representatives serving on the European Commission Open Science Policy Platform. And we are working with our working groups on responding to proposed legislations and presenting the view of the libraries to politicians and other stakeholders. Can I have some silence there? Thank you. So one thing is the EU copyright reform, which I wanted to mention. We have been doing a lot of work in Brussels and working with the community. Somehow, you're certainly all aware that on the 12th of September, the European Parliament has voted to approve the proposed change to the copyright reform. LIBER was on the one hand, very happy because part of the articles actually will allow libraries to better preserve, digitize, and share the collections. But at the same time, there are very deep concerns about the lack of support for things such as text and data mining and artificial intelligence. We believe that these technologies are essential for the sort of accessing data and information which researchers need. Now I'm moving to open science, and what I wanted to say is that we have actually published an open science roadmap. I have 4 or 5 copies here with me, so if you're interested in this, you can pick one up. These are specifically targeting libraries. But so now on the open science thing, we heard about that already. Open science is not only open access to publications that was mentioned before. It's actually, a sort of embracing concept where everything is open. So it includes open data, open software, open peer reviews, and various things, and all this actually across the whole research cycle. So starting from the analysis and publications and review up to the data gather, up to the reuse of this data. I'm not going to talk in detail about open science. We heard about the Open Science Cloud, which is actually aiming to provide the infrastructure to enable open science in Europe. But although the wheels are in motion, there are still many changes required, not only technical, but I think most important at the policy and cultural and the business level, which are still required. So something about open access, which is an important element in the transition to open science. And open access primarily for us in the librarian community, but I believe also, as we heard today in relation to open air, for instance, is primarily the possibility to have access to publications, so mostly journals or books. Now, I think the main issues here, I don't know how many in the room are familiar really with the open access movement. And in fact, I would like to ask you to raise your hand if you are familiar with it. So I see really a few hands. I think the important thing here that we should understand is that research has always been open, and it is open, but the big issue is that researchers get their career and they get promoted, they become professors, etc., only depending on the publications that they produce. And most of all, not depending on the quality of the publications, but on the impact of the journals in which they are publishing. And these publications are very expensive for the readers. I mean, universities, libraries, and research institutions pay a lot of money in subscriptions to these journals. So basically, the problem really that is being addressed by the open access movement is that research outputs, rather than being freely available, they're actually only available behind paywalls. That's one point. Second point is that for libraries in particular, has become really not sustainable anymore to pay so much money for subscriptions. And there are trends in some countries in Europe where they actually, at the national level, they are starting to, I would say, boycott the big publications. It's not the reader, not actually completely free. In open access, most of the time is the author who pays, and this concept of APC is sort of a contribution, a fee that the authors have to pay to the journal for publishing their articles. But on the other hand, these APC, so these author processing charges, are not that expensive, although they can be unaffordable for individual researchers, and somebody's got to pay. So it's either the research or the research institution. There are various so-called routes, so alternative models to open access: green, gold, hybrid. I'm not going in detail of those things, but they have sort of different business models behind that, and also the different ways of accessing to the research. Well, what I think is also important to say is that although the open access movement has been there for many years, and also projects such as Open Air have made a lot of progress, the take-up of open access is still very slow, and it's far from being ubiquitous. As I said, is not really free, and I think, in my view, the most important thing is the significant lack of incentive. So as I said before, researchers very often do not have enough incentive to publish on open access journals because their career is determined by, say, high impact factor journals and so on. So, but there is something which I actually would like to focus on today, and it's a kind of breakthrough initiative which was taken very recently. It was launched on the 4th of September, and it's called Plan S, and Coalition S is the coalition that sort of underlines this plan. I'd like to ask, can you please raise your hand if you heard about this before? Right, so this is an initiative that was taken by, the Commission has a very serious objective. The Commission would like to make open access a reality by 2020, as you can read there. So has set up, Robert Jan Smits has actually been appointed as the EU open access envoy, and he's taken that initiative together with Science Europe to gather a number of national funders together, and they made this plan to accelerate the transition to full and immediate open access to scientific publications in Europe. On the 4th of September, when this was launched, there were 11 countries who subscribed to this plan. Now there are 13 actually national funders, and more are joining. So the underlying idea was, because there are not enough incentives for publication, and actually open access, as I said, is not really free, that funders, those who fund research, have an actually important role to play if they actually make their funds conditional. So basically, there are a number of principles in this Plan S, and the first one is the first that you read there, between brackets. I think it's interesting to read it out. It says that all scientific publications that result from research funded by public grants, provided by funders who participate, must be published in compliant open access journals or on compliant open access platforms. So that means that if you get the money from those funding bodies, you are forced to publish on open access journals. Otherwise, you don't get the money. And there are also a number of other interesting principles. So I've actually, there are, I think, if I remember correctly, there are 11 other principles. I think the most interesting ones are the one that says, so under this plan, the authors should retain the copyright of their publication and not the publisher. I mean, it doesn't mean that a scientist cannot, I mean, who makes a discovery and wants to register a patent cannot do that. But I mean, if you are going to, if you intend to publish your result of your research, you can do that. And under this scheme, you should retain the copyright of that publication rather than the publisher. Another thing, as I mentioned before, so open access is actually not free because it's the author or the institution that the authors belongs to that pays. These these authoring processing charges vary between 1,000 and 5,000 euro depending on the journals. So let's say in average it's actually approximately 2,000 euro. Still, it's money that possibly the researchers could not afford to pay. So another important point is that for when relevant and when possible, it will be the funders themselves and the institutions who should pay the fees and not the actual scientists. Or when this is not possible, the funders will agree amongst themselves about capping and standardizing these processing fees. Another thing is that the hybrid model of open access, which actually means it's a very strange combination of subscription and open access, will not be accepted. And I think the last point, which is also interesting, is that funders will take responsibility for monitoring the compliance, so that making sure that actually this is going to happen. So, I mean, the way we see it in the libraries world, we still have to see, how it will take up, because it's as I said, it's a brand new initiative, but we have the feeling that it's going to be, really a game changer and will change the way significantly. Will be, being a strong boost for open access in Europe. Institutional repositories, so libraries can actually help with the development of these institutional repositories and make sure that they meet the requirements provided set by the funders, and directly facilitate open access as publishers of information rather than just curating it or providing access for long-term preservation. One thing I was hoping was to actually find some information about the open access in the region here. I don't have any study, but I suppose, and this is why there are a few question marks there. I suppose that most scientists in the region, but it's also the case in Europe. So I think this is are still stuck with the subscription model. That there is limited access to open access publications as consumers, so that probably the information about open access publications and availability is not that much, but that's one point I make there. There's an importance on raising awareness about open access and open access journals. So one thing is to look at the directory of open access journals, the second link down there. Another is a resource which can be useful to find out what's out there in terms of open access being able for a scientist to know, where to find the information, but also how they can contribute. So what I think is important is for libraries, institutions, and researchers in the region is to get together in order to change the culture. Research funders and institutions should possibly, fund that in the Plan S, because really funders have a strong leverage in making sure that this can happen by mandating open access and open science policies, making their funding conditional from a researcher actually producing open science data and research. And finally, I think it's also important for infrastructure providers in this region to make sure that they, and this is what I see EaPEC Connect doing somehow, the network, the storage facilities, the repositories, the data curation and data stewardship instruments. So build the facilities that would allow your researchers to be active contributors of open science. Last thing is just a sort of advertisement, because next week is the International Open Access Week, and so that means that there are a number of events which people can follow online. I looked in the region. There are 2 organized in Ukraine, but you can Google for Open Access Week and you'll find more information. And yeah, this is how I wanted to conclude my presentation.
So the next speaker is Tomasz Parkola from the PSNC, who will present cultural heritage online, no time to lose. So the floor is yours, Tomasz.
So hello everyone. So yes, I work for PSNC. Which was founded in 1993. The institution is affiliated to the Institute of Bioorganic Chemistry of the Polish Academy of Sciences, and we have approximately 300 employees at PSNC. PSNC is a leading operator of Polish infrastructure with almost 9,000 kilometers of fibers in Poland and also in Europe. And in my presentation, I will talk about cultural heritage, because I work not directly with networking, but rather with systems or network services related to cultural heritage. So when I talk about cultural heritage, I really like to stress 3 critical elements, in my opinion, which are digitization, preservation, and access. So what I mean by those? So you need to digitize as a content holding institution to preserve or secure your physical items, because sometimes you have physical items which are deteriorating or damaging because of the acidic paper or because of UV rays. So this is one of the reasons that you would like to digitize, and you have no time to lose, because otherwise you will lose the physical items. Thanks to the digitization, you can have digital representation of the physical items, and you can keep them for future. But also, if you'd like to share your unique or most valuable objects, you can do that via digitization. But once you have those digital assets in your infrastructure, on your hard drive, for example, you have to think about preservation. So long-term preservation means that you would like to keep those digital materials accessible over time in 10, 20, and 50 years. And here you have to think about aging of formats or media storage devices. For example, now probably no one from teenagers knows what floppy disk is. And you also, on the other hand, have to think about security setup, from intruders or you have to introduce redundancy in order not to lose your digital assets. Once you have this all managed, I mean, once you are able to professionally digitize and preserve your digital content, you can think of making this, making those objects available online for the broader community. You can, thanks to that, promote your institution. You can contribute to cultural heritage, but you can also support economy in the sense that you can provide those materials to researchers or to creative industries, like in tourism or other sectors. But that's not even all, because you can also take advantage of those digitization-related activities or cultural heritage related activities to build community around your institution or around your content, because there are many examples in Poland also for this, and one of the I listed 4 here: social centers for digitization, mobile digitization center, collection days, and transcriptathon events. And one of the very interesting initiatives here is the social centers for digitization. This is really something that is impressive for me because we have in Poland several this kind of centers, social centers for digitization, and they are able to build really quite large community of people that volunteer and digitize objects for free for specific institutions. On the picture you have a club of 100,000, it's called 100,000 Club, so it means that each person here digitized at least 100,000 pages. Altogether, they digitize more than 1 million pages in this center. Usually, those people come from, for example, from third age universities, and they really are very much involved in the work. I really would like to say the quote from one of the volunteers, or 2 quotes in fact. So he said that in one of the newspapers, local newspapers, it's in fact near the Gdańsk in Poland, that what we do is similar to what in the Middle Ages did the monks who rewrote the books, but we are a million of times more productive. And the other quote is, I like the statement that the book cannot be a prison for the thoughts it contains. We'll release these thoughts and make them available to a wider audience. So, well, I think that it's really engaging those people to contribute to those efforts, to making to make the cultural heritage really online and available. But obviously, not every institution is able to manage the whole digitization workflow or digital library system and so on. So this is why, especially in Poland, where for smaller institutions it's a trouble, there are regional initiatives. It's called regional digital libraries, which in fact are a kind of collaboration between several institutions. There is usually one leading institution and others contribute to build the digital library. So as you can see on the screen, there are, for example, 3 which build regional digital library portal. They can also have their own smaller portals which present only their digital assets, and usually also those regional digital libraries use infrastructure provided by NRENs. So for example, in Wielkopolska region, PSNC provides infrastructure for Wielkopolska Digital Library. So this is also a good example of how you can collaborate, and even small institutions can provide their content online. So just to give you some examples of digital libraries, those are from Polish, screenshots from Polish digital libraries. This is Jagiellonian Digital Library from Krakow. one of the biggest ones in Poland, more than 500,000 digital objects. We have also smaller ones, like this one. This is digital museum, I would say, from theater from Łódź. They provide materials from their spectacles that they perform in the theater. And also we have repositories that present digital items on the map in the context of geolocalized items. This is a map of testimonies from Second World War and with borders before the war. There are also obviously search results with filtering options, and we are trying to provide attractive look and feel for the content itself. So because majority of digital libraries in Poland are based on our tools, I mean tools that are developed by PSNC, I just wanted to give you an overview of how we envision such activities. I mean, what we propose is to have or components. One is for managing the digitization workflow, which is called DLab, so it handles all the steps of digitization and keeps track of each item that goes through the digitization process. Then we have a component which allows to provide those materials online, so this is called the Libra or the Museum. And also one which is responsible for archiving, the RCO, which archives digital objects for long term according to OAIS model, internationally recognized model for long-term preservation. And the deployments can be simple but also complicated. Just to give you an example of these are state transitions of activities in digitization task in the DLab system, so there can be many transitions, but you don't have to use all of them, obviously. Altogether, in digital libraries, in our Pioneer network, we have approximately 130 deployments, and those deployments are related to digital libraries, museum, or archives, but they are not always public. Sometimes we have deployments which are internal repositories or knowledge bases. Those activities were started in 2002 with first regional digital library in Poland, Wielkopolska Digital Library. And altogether, all digital libraries would provide access to 5 million of digital objects. So, as you can see, there are many digital libraries available in Poland. It would be hard for the user to go to each of them and search, for example, to some interesting to him information. So this is why in 2007 we initiated a countrywide aggregator of metadata. So this is FBC, this is a screenshot of FBC, and this system gathers metadata from all digital libraries in Poland via well-known interoperable protocols. It gathers those metadata and provides, among other features, search feature, so that the user can go on this portal and search through all digital objects from Poland in this case. And as I said, in total we have more than 5 million of digital objects, and here you have, you can see content providers to FBC. So each rectangle shows a specific digital library, and the bigger the rectangle is, the more digital items it provides. So we have, for example, more or less, I think, 7 really large digital libraries. They are usually regional, I guess, mostly regional. We have also several dozens of medium size, which has like several thousands of digital objects, and there are many smaller ones as well. But FBC is not only about search feature. It obviously aggregates metadata from Polish digital libraries, as I said, but it also does normalization and enrichment of this gathered information. So it tries to make a common, let's say, for example, metadata scheme to search through those items. But it also communicates with other systems, like central library catalog in Poland, or obviously Google searching mechanism, and Europeana, which is a European digital library, one level up from the FBC, so national aggregator. So Europeana is on a European level. It gathers metadata from all over the Europe, from national aggregators like FBC, and then provides, for example, search through all items which are available in Europe in digital form. But obviously, Europeana is not only the search engine. They have multiple other activities around it. So just to give you two examples that I already mentioned before in my presentation, which can also build a community around your institution. Those two examples are collection days. So they try to have events where they invite citizens to bring some items from specific period of time, for example, or related to some specific event in the history. In Poznań, we had a collection day related to fall of the communism times. So people brought, I don't know, coins from this time, or old documents, glasses which were used then. And during this event, we digitized those items and provided them online. So this is a kind of keeping history recorded in digital form. And also transcribathon events. Those are a kind of marathons for transcribing images with text to a machine-readable text. So this is also organized and brings people together to work and contribute to cultural heritage. What I'd like to also stress is that at PSNC we would not be able to do this everything, I mean those systems and support cultural heritage without collaboration or international collaboration. Because, for example, what we do in the context of international collaboration is we keep together with Europeana Foundation, which builds Europeana portal. We act as a technical partner in many projects related to Europeana. We are also founding member of EaPEC Center of Competence in Digitization. We are affiliated member of the Open Preservation Foundation, which is about long-term preservation. And we are also founding member of Daria PL and member of Daria ERIC, which is about digital humanities, and also member of DataSite Consortium, which provides digital objects identifiers or accounts, DOI accounts for institutions. And to conclude my presentation, I'd like to stress that mass digitization projects are obviously either undertaken by many institutions in Europe, but for me the key element there are those three aspects of cultural heritage: online digitization, preservation, and online access. And major challenges which are related to that is, for first, good organization of work, and then direct access to content via interoperable protocols so that external systems can use them further. And this is also connected. Wide promotion and adoption of best practices is also connected with the two above. Thank you very much. And if there are any questions.
Any questions?
Yes. What do you use automatic recognition tools, optical recognition or optical transcription?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do use them. In fact, EaPEC Center of Competence in Digitization is about optical character recognition as well. So we use different tools for different materials. And we also have some tools which allow you to enhance OCR results. So, for example, to correct them, to have better, let's say, textual representation.
Thank you.
Any more questions? So thank you. Thank you for the all presenters. And I will give a floor to Leonie for announcement.
Thank you. There's one presentation missing, so we have to skip one presentation. That's the one on cybersecurity, because we had some technical difficulties here and doesn't fit into the timeline now, because we have to finish at 5 o'clock sharp. So unfortunately we had to skip this. So I have one more that of the morning. So according to the new plan, we will start at 9 o'clock in this room with the lightning talks. And the workshops will take place in the afternoon. And I think the schedule will be distributed tomorrow. So we will start with lightning talks at 9 o'clock, and then tomorrow we will receive a new schedule. So that was it for today. Enjoy your evening, and I'm looking forward to meet you again here at the conference Re-Energize tomorrow morning. Goodbye.